Yeah, welcome to You've Been Framed. It's absolutely fantastic times we're living in.
Yeah, I mean, talking about 2012, because people were saying, there's going to be an apocalypse, and it's all. And I think the apocalypse, and it's happening. Apocalypse means revealing. Is that correct? That is my understanding of it. It means the revealing, and this year has been remarkable because I've been loads of festivals. I mean, this is the first talk I've had in sort of Southsea, and it's like we haven't got enough chairs. I mean, it is wonderful, getting really good turnouts. But all summer I've been doing talks at festivals, and just people are waking up. 5 years ago, when I started doing talks, I was like, I would turn up at the local pub, on a Friday night, and everyone used to just take the piss out of me. Now, at least there's a handful of people actually taking it seriously. It's great. So, absolutely wonderful. So, what I say before any of my talks, can you see the screen there? Yeah, that's good. Basically, don't believe anything I say. Don't believe anything any of the speakers say, and don't believe anything that the newspapers tell you, because, in your heart, you can realise what's the truth and what isn't. Okay, so it's a matter of don't be sort of like... there was somebody on our forum on the website, and he'd watched 7/7 Conspiracy Road Trip on BBC Three, and he'd say, all the conspiracy theories are complete. I mean, that one programme, obviously, he hadn't really done any research, and unfortunately, the next 20 sort of posts sort of put him in the right direction, quite sort of gently, but... it's quite interesting. But people are waking up, and that's a wonderful thing. So, why is it called fraud, and why is it called illusion of debt? Just to get an idea of where people are. So, who's aware? I'm sure pretty well everyone. Is everyone aware of Max Kaiser here? Yeah. So, I've got a lot of people. So, what I know very little about banking and markets and things like that. But the way I see myself is that if the emperor is naked, you don't need a PhD in fashion design to actually notice it. Okay, so it's the whole system of money is completely crazy, and I'm going to try and explain to you why. Okay, now it started off the reason, because I wasn't interested in money or banking or anything like that. It was just one of those things that happened. I was quite interested in the fact that I felt like Patrick, well, like everyone that's speaking and everyone here today, you realise that our government haven't got our best interests at heart, to put it politely, perhaps a little bit more than that. And I feel that the banking system underpins everything. In as far as, if you've got lots of money, you're thinking about, where do I invest it? I don't want to lose it, or I'm really worried about inflation. And the most worried people that come up to me after, I've done a talk, are people with like a lot of money in the bank, because because I tell them, well, the whole system's got to collapse. Mathematically, it's got to collapse. And those people with sort of like, 200,000 plus, they're going, when do you think it's going to, when do you think it's going to collapse? And what do you think I should do with, don't worry about it, let it go. It's like... Those of us without any money that occasionally struggle to get petrol in the car, but you don't have to worry about it at all. It's great. It's not always great. No, that's not true. But the whole thing is, if you've got lots of money, you worry about it, and if you haven't got any money, you're thinking, oh God, I really fancy a sandwich. I'm starving, but bloody prices of the sandwiches. And if people talk about inflation, I mean, it's like I've noticed, because when you're a bit short of money, you notice the prices in the supermarket, and they are, I'm sure everyone's noticing that a lot of the really basic, essential stuff like veg and whatever is going up in price. But anyway, I'm digressing. So, first off, the whole currency thing is, I think everyone realises, I mean, that is actually intrinsically not true, because the currency, I've put the currency as totally worthless paper. Only 3% of our money supply is interest-free and in paper and coins, and is issued by the Treasury. Everything else is issued by private banks as debt with interest. Now, the reason I got into this, because, as I say, banking wasn't something I was particularly interested in, but the reason I got interested in it is because I basically had a business which was quite successful, went to sell it, didn't get paid, ended up in shitloads of, I think I could say the occasional rude words because there aren't any children about. But I ended up in quite a lot of debt. And so suddenly, I'd started waking up to a lot of things that were going on the planet. And even sort of my own, very difficult to put this into words, but my own relationship with the universe and who I was. And I'd started doing strange things like meditating and trying to explore who I was. And I realised the government was very, very controlling and didn't have our best interests at heart. And I started empowering myself. But then I'd get debt collectors phoning me up and going, oh, hello, is Johh Witterick there? And I go, oh, my voice would go totally, it would start wavering because I was in fear. They were taking my power away from me because deep down, I had to sort of like follow the string and wind it back. And deep down, I was feeling guilt and shame about being in debt. But I'm thinking, well, hang on, the government's in debt. Most corporations in debt. Majority of people have credit cards or mortgages, so they're in debt. What's going on here? Why am I feeling sort of less than, or why am I feeling a little bit sort of like beaten up when debt collectors, apart from the fact that they're trying to get money off me that I don't have, and I was worried that they'd come round and start stealing everything I had, which wasn't a lot at the time. But then I started looking into fractional reserve banking, and once you actually look at that, then you sort of go, oh, well, once you get your head around this, and people think, oh, fractional reserve banking, it's really, really complicated. Right, I'm going to explain it. If there's anyone that's got mental capacity of at least a 10-year-old or perhaps an 8-year-old, then you'll understand it, because that's the sort of level that I work with, okay? I don't get into complicated stuff. It was interesting. I did a talk last week in Edinburgh, and Anthony Peake was one of the speakers there. And he's absolutely very, very clever guy. And afterwards, he tells me that he actually did a postgrad at London School of Economics. And he said, what I was saying was actually making more sense to him than the LSE was. So had I known at the time, I think, oh my God, I'm going to be talking about like economics, and I've got like Anthony Peake, who's bloody genius anyway, but he knows about money. But anyway, I've got to thank. We've got to say thank you to Sarah for the pink. That's why it's a pink. I lost my original marbles. I had to get some more. So hopefully we've got 10. Yes, I have 10 marbles, okay? You're all scratching your head thinking, what the hell is he going on about? I have 10 marbles in a bag, okay? Right, I'm going to put them back in the bag now. Would anyone independently verify? Oh, I've counted them. You're going to have to believe me, but there's 10 there. Right, is there anyone here who can get 11 marbles out of this bag? Have we got any magicians or magi or anyone that's good at illusion? No? Actually, not illusion. We actually want 10 out. We don't want sort of like sleight of hand or any smoke and mirrors. I want 10 marbles out of this bag. Sorry, I want 11. See, I'm just like, see, intrinsically, I don't want to like add I don't want to add interest or usury to this. But that's it. You cannot get it's any child knows you can't get 11 marbles out of this bag. It is impossible. But every time you go to the bank for something they call a loan, which isn't a loan because they don't have the money to loan you, they create the money and then they charge interest. Now, that interest doesn't exist. It can never exist. And so where am I going to get that interest to pay off? Well, the money was created, was added on to the money supply. So where am I going to get the interest to pay that off? Where is the government going to get the interest to pay off the actual debts? You see, it's really, really simple. Every politician that talks about we've got to have cuts, we've got to balance the books. Well, I'm sorry, but either, there's one of two choices here. Either I'm stupid and there's something that I've completely gone over my head. And as I say, Anthony Peake couldn't work out what it was either, and he's been to the, he's done, he's been to the LSE. So, and he agrees with me, and Max Kaiser, who's a very, very, so a lot of very, very clever people agree with me. These debts can never be paid off. The actual debt, the current national debt altogether is about 4.8. When you take everything, it's, on face value, it's 1.1 trillion. Now, add it all together, it's 4.8 trillion. Well, there's nowhere near 1 trillion in the money supply. There's not that amount of money in circulation because the money supply always falls back. And I've got a graph I can show you in a minute. Basically, every politician that says we've got to pay off these debts is lying. We can't. It is impossible. And go along to your MP and say, well, why is it we need austerity measures? Because, we can't. And this is what I realised. When I was in debt and I was getting the debt collectors phoning me up, once I realised that the whole financial system was a big con, it's like musical chairs. If we all stood up, I'm not going to get everyone to stand up and dance, but if we all stood up and danced, and, we took the spare chairs out first of all, and, somebody removes a couple of the chairs, there's going to be 2 people that end up on the floor. Now, it doesn't take a genius. Most children can understand musical chairs, but you try and get an economist to understand that an exponential money supply is unworkable on a finite planet. If we had an infinite planet with infinite resources and infinite space and infinite time, then we could have quite happily, but we don't have that. We're not in that sort of construct. So it's completely mad. And Martin Wolf of the Financial Times, he actually says, the essence of the contemporary money system is the creation of money out of nothing by banks' often foolish lending. And that was, Martin Wolf of the Financial Times. So it's not just conspiracy nutters and people like myself that have got a limited grasp on sort of economics. It's obvious. It's obvious. So, they don't have a solution to the problem. Now, at the time, I didn't have a solution to my own. I started finding out about all these things and how crazy the financial system is, but I didn't actually have a way of dealing with it until I realised. Can anyone read Nexus magazine? I haven't watched it for years since the internet took over. I find the articles just too long, for my brain. But brilliant resource. Now, I read years ago something about the Federal Reserve, and all I remembered from that was the Federal Reserve has no reserves and it's not federal. And when you look at the bank, it's crazy, isn't it? Call it the Federal Reserve, and it's not federal, it's private, and it hasn't got any reserves because they've been stolen. That's a crazy thing. So I realised the whole system was a bit of a scam, and they've stolen everything that used to be of value, that the currency used to be based on, and stole that from us. So, but I didn't have a way of dealing with the debt collectors or the banks that were saying, look, you owe us all this money. And I'm thinking, well, I haven't got that money. And people have to default. 2 things have to happen because of fractional reserve banking. Is one, people have to default. And secondly, unless the game's going to finish very, very soon, you have to increase the money supply the whole time. Because it's like adding more marbles. Oh, we're running out of marbles. Right, we need to get a truck full of marbles, tip it up. And everyone's grasping, trying to grab their little marbles, because they have to inflate the money supply, because otherwise the game would have been over. Everyone would have been bankrupt ages ago. It's crazy. But anyway, I came across a lady. Who's come across this lady before? Mary Elizabeth Croft. So few of you haven't. Right. Wonderful, wonderful book, because her book was called How I Clobbered Every Cash Confiscatory Bureau Known to Man, and in brackets it was a spiritual economics guide. And you can find it if you look at my website, which is Get Out of Debt Free. It's not my website. If you look at the website which I started, which is now like community, it's a lot of people getting together and sharing a lot of information. If you look on the front page, it says this website wouldn't be possible without the information from Mary Elizabeth Croft. And the reason that I set up the website and she didn't, is because she had a website, and spoke about the book and even a link to the book. And it's a fantastic, it's a heavy going. It's about 100 pages, but once you've read that, it's almost changes your reality around in your head. So, but it also, she actually told us how we can deal with the banks. Because what we can actually say to the banks, we can say, well, did you lend us any money in the first place? Anything of value? Or did you create that money that you gave me on the credit card or you put in my bank account? Did you just sort of go on a computer and go, no one's looking, oh, we got the signature, how much? Right, okay, we give them a 10k limit, email it into your bank account, bang. They've created that money on a computer. It doesn't actually exist, that money never existed. It can't exist. It's not worth anything. Apart from the fact that if I go to the bar there and I use my plastic card, they go, oh, yes, I've got some digits as well. I mean, it's a crazy. But, of course, they didn't have anything to lend me in the first place. This is the crazy thing. So, anyway, Mary Elizabeth Croft, what she did, she said, OK, ask them to prove that they lent you anything, and then ask them if you've got a valid contract. And there was something else that I've forgotten now, because it was ages ago that it was about, I think 6 years ago. So anyway, I read her book and thought, fantastic, there's letters. She's actually come up with the idea of writing letters. So I can actually solve my, my debt problem, because what I can do is I can write to all the debt collectors and banks that are chasing me and say, look, I would very, very much like to pay you back. However, there's a couple of questions here I'd like you to answer first. And if you can answer those questions, then, yeah, I'll pay you back, no problem. Well, of course, they can't answer those questions. Not being honest, they couldn't. So, anyway, long and short of it was, I got on the internet, Googled Mary Elizabeth Croft, template letters. You know, normally you search something on Google, and it tells you how many results, 150,000 pages. So, Google Mary Elizabeth Croft, template letters, not a sausage. This was 6 years ago. People weren't challenging, I couldn't find anything on the internet. I was going, this is crazy. So what I did, I actually read through, I'd already read her book, but I then had to read it again and take notes. And then I had to, from those notes, actually work out the letters. And then I got a website, it's called Get Out of Debt Free. It was like, like get out of jail free, get out of debt free. And the idea being, I put the letters up, and what happened then, I mean, it was crazy. People just started coming onto the site. I mean, I think, actually, Headley, you were probably one of the first few people that was actually on the site, because I'd only just got it up beforehand.
The first person that paid to join.
You were the first person. I feel guilty now. Look, I'll get you a drink. I'll get you a drink. Oh, you did, yeah, because I didn't have that. I didn't have anything. Yeah. We do take donations, yeah. So, but I mean, it's great, because the website really sort of took off. But I'll get onto that in a second.
Excuse me, buddy. What's the name of our book again?
The book is How I Clobbered Every Cash Confiscatory Bureau Known to Man, dash brackets, a spiritual economics guide. There is a link to it on the front of the website. So, but what I'll do, I'm a bit hard of hearing, so it's all right at the front, but if you've got any questions, what I'll do, I'll have 10 minutes at the end, and I'll try and rattle through it. So I've got 10 minutes at the end, and I'll answer some questions then. So, but the important thing is that you realise is, and I'll be just giving you an overview of the letters a little bit later on in the talk as well, but the important thing is I started realising that the whole financial system was like a game of Monopoly. And in a game of Monopoly, you've only really got one winner. Yeah, that were often the bankers. I'll go on to that. But but also from doing my sort of meditations, and I do this sort of like Vipassana meditation where you stay quiet for 10 days, and it's quite amazing. And it's almost, when you start looking at Eastern philosophy, they say it's all a game or it's all illusion anyway. And when you actually let go of that, I was, 1 minute I was thinking, oh my God, I'm in debt, I'm in trouble. And then it just sort of like, you can actually let go at one level. So it's not a game for those people that are committing suicide because they're really, so upset about losing all their money or being chased. It gets too much for them. And it's very, very difficult if you've got a family to feed and it's not just yourself. So it's, I say it's just a game, but it works at different levels. But when you can let go of the attachment to the game, and that goes for if you've got lots of money or if you've got no money. So that's, but that's another level, and that's where I start getting onto the sort of strange spiritual stuff and stuff like that. But it's the whole idea of, well, say the Vipassana meditation and a lot of Buddhist stuff, it's the end of suffering. And by letting go, it's the attachments, as they tell people with Dyson vacuum cleaners. Yeah. Sorry, that was terrible. I'm glad you liked that, Headley. Sorry, no, sneak that one in. It's attachments, isn't it? But you've got to realise that the object of the global financial system is to bankrupt everyone. That's why they do. The idea of fractional reserve banking didn't happen by accident. They knew what they were doing. When they start quantitative easing, they know that every time they inflate the money supply, all those people, it tends to be older people that have been saving all their lives so that they get a decent standard of living, the last few years of their life. It's them that their money is being stolen from them. And it's very sad, because if you double the money, very simply, take everything else out, double the money supply. This is my sort of, someone from the LSE will argue. They'll say, yes, but keeping everything else equal, if you double the money supplies, you're going to half the value of the currency. And we've seen that happen. We've seen that happen over the years. It's crazy. And people say, but as the economy's grown, they get muddled up between the economy growing, which is the amount of business going on, and they think that the money supply has to grow as well. Well, it doesn't. As soon as you grow the money supply, there's little point trading, because, of course, the value of the currency goes down. But anyway, what I did... this was a slide after I'd got the website up. This was 2009. Debt collectors hit out at advice websites. And I can remember that day quite clearly, because my Webby, he sort of gets on the phone. He said, John... I goes, what? And his name's John as well. So, what's up, John? He said, have you seen the newspaper? I said, no. He said, we're in The Guardian. I said, fantastic. He said, no, they're trying to close us down. I said, no. But that was 2009, and it was the trade body for debt collectors holds a workshop for its members to look at ways of combating organisations such as the Consumer Action Group. There's Legal Beagles, and it's just gone off the top, but it was Get Out of Debt Free. Now, what they didn't realise was that there was a Guardian reporter at their little talk they had, and what they didn't realise is that Guardian reporter was going to actually put it on the website with hyperlinks. Because at the time, if you put in Get Out of Debt, I was on page 5 of Google. After this, page 1 of Google. Fantastic. And that's when people started flooding. What was it, in 2009, so 3 years ago. People started really, and then not only that, but within a few months of this coming out, we actually overtook the government website for a lot of the search terms. So, a lot of the debt words, dealing with debt collectors were actually up there on the top of Google. So, just big thank you to the Consumer Services Association for trying to ban the website. But obviously, as this happened, initially, of course, the debt collectors were phoning me up, and my voice was going all sort of like, whoa, like this. I was getting all nervous. And then I started getting brave with the debt collectors, because what I would do, I'd actually sort of I'd put them on hold, say, they'd say, is John Witterick there? I say, yeah, just one moment. And I'm just putting you on hold. And what I'd do is just put it next to, I'd have Radio 3 playing in the afternoon, and nice gentle music, nice and calm. Just put the phone down, and then I'd sort of creep away very, very quietly, and just give them 2 or 3 minutes of pleasant music, and I'd go back and say, hello? Yeah, just one moment. Yeah, you're still there, aren't you? Yeah, okay. And then I wouldn't actually tell them what I was doing, but you could actually keep them on, and the idea was that the longer I could actually keep them on the phone, then they're not actually phoning on anyone else. So I'm doing other people a favour as well, you see. This is my, perhaps the logic was distorted. But see, I found out that debt collectors buy the debt from the bank for about 10p in the pound. Well, I thought, well, so all that money you pay back the debt collector, none of that goes back to the bank, apart from 10p, but that's already gone. And of course, if they don't get any money out of you, they put it back into a pot, and then someone else pulls it out for sort of like 6p. And then they put it, and they don't get it, you know. So they're looking for people to go, oh, I'm really sorry, I'll pay you back, you know. And don't fall for the £1 a week trick. Sorry, £1, because what they say, well, what can you afford? And most people say, well, £1 a month. I don't know why, but people always like agree. Because they'll say, what can you afford? I don't know, £1. Because most people, regardless if you're a bit broke, you can afford £1. Don't pay them £1 a month because A, it costs more for them to collect it from you, so why would they possibly do it? They'll do it because up until that point, they didn't have a contract with you. As soon as you agree to pay them £1 a week, bingo, verbal contract. They say that they are recording the calls for training purposes and quality and training. You know, as if debt collectors, like, you know, add to our quality of life or anything like that. But quality purposes, you know, it's crazy. So, you know, it's what I say is, oh, by the way, I'm also recording this for entertainment and my own personal satisfaction as well. So, yeah, you can have some fun with it. And then, I mean, and say that's the whole thing is when you empower yourself. Once you realise it's a big scam, and you start empowering yourself, then sorry, our voice is going very dry. Sorry. Yeah, thank you. That's my excuse. When you start empowering yourself, then you can have fun with it as well, because once you realise the whole thing's a scam, and these debt collectors. Basically, the bank made the money out of nothing in the first place. It got you to sign an application form, which it starts off as an application form, but they turn it into a promissory note, which they can then sell to the central bank. In America, the Federal Reserve. In this country, sell it to the Bank of England. They can actually securitise they can use that as an asset. So they get their money back, but they want you to pay it back with interest as well. And then if they don't get the money, they don't even bother chasing it themselves. They sell it to the bottom feeders, and these bottom feeders, you know, come around basically chasing the poorest people in society, and then they come along and buy the debts. I mean, it's crazy. So that's these lovely people, but do treat them with respect and love, and sarcasm's okay. But you know, I when they'd phone me, I ended up going. And always sound like you're really pleased to hear from them. Because they depend on fear. Okay, now you take away the fear, you say, oh, hello, is that Lowell's? You know, how can I help you today? Lovely to hear from you. Isn't it a lovely day? What's the weather like with you at the moment? So, is that Johh Witterick? Well, you're phoning. Surely, you know, you know you've got a name next to the telephone number. You must know whose number you're phoning. But I don't know who you are. So what I'm going to do is ask you some very simple security questions before we go ahead. Okay. But just 1 minute. I'm just going to put you on hold a minute while I go and get them, because I think they're upstairs, and I think they could be under the bed. So just 1 moment. Radio 3, click. Put them on hold. You know, just walk away. Of course, the questions are right next to the phone, but give them like 60 minutes. Who's taking control of the telephone call? Yes. And so you say, oh, hello, are you still there? Yeah, okay, just ask you some simple security questions, like, can I have your full name, please? And they don't like giving their second name. But they've got all your details, haven't they? You say, right, can I have your line manager, please? Name of your line manager and his direct telephone number. And you can try for their mobile number as well, that's one. So I don't want a complete stranger, you know, phoning me up that I don't even know. Funny that, really. So, you know, have a bit of fun with it. And I asked them, what is the capital of Peru? Does anyone know? Oh, yeah, you'd make good debt collectors. So, and of course, their mother's maiden name as well. And when they when they answer all those successfully, or, 4 out of 5 is good enough for me. If they get one wrong, that's okay. Then what I say is, right, so how can I help you today? He said, well, it's about your debt. I said, oh, financial matter, is it? Right, I'm sorry. I don't deal with anything like that over the phone. But if you'd like to write to me, that'd be perfect. But is there anything else I can help you with today? It's like, now, can you see okay, I'm making a bit of fun and light of it, but it's actually really good fun, and it's empowering. And when you empower people, once you realise it's all a big scam, you might as well have a bit of fun with it. Now, the other thing, which is quite serious, is if they're not intimidating you, what is the point of them phoning it? Because I had this one company, I'd do the same thing, and actually wrote down all the information. So the next time somebody phoned out, I said, oh, right, your line manager, that would be Mr. Right. And they go, how does he know? And of course, I'm all jolly and having fun. And so they're not intimidating me. What is the point? I think I'm about halfway through, so I'm having to sort of like think about time, because I can talk for ages, but I'm going to go a bit easy. So anyway, what I did, I started doing some serious looking into the banking system. Well, what I did, I actually got onto the central bank of the UK, which is the Bank of England. Thank you. Sorry, this is the sort of technical stuff I struggle with. But anyway, I downloaded their PDF, and I thought, oh, I'll have a read of this. This will be a laugh. So, your money, by the way, on what the bank does. So, Bank of England, and you can download this. I hope they've updated it, because I downloaded this a little while ago, and it is just a laugh. It really is. It says, the Bank of England is the UK's central bank. It's not like a bank in your local high street. This is how they talk to you, like you're a little kid, and you go, oh yes, you're very clever, and you're up there, aren't you? It says, it has special functions that help keep the economy and financial system stable. Well, that's fantastic that they've been doing that, hasn't it? Because it's really stable at the moment, isn't it? This affects us all. It's like written for 5-year-old children, isn't it? Oh, thank you for keeping it stable. That's really nice of you. Oh, it's your money, is it? Oh, well, you look after the money. Yeah, that's good. And then it's got financial system stable, trust in banknotes. That's very important. Lose that, the whole system collapses. But it's not even they say banknotes. It's not even, 2 levels. There's so many levels you can go on, and I'm just trying to skim the surface here. Only 3% in banknotes. The rest is in electronic, basically electronic fund transfer, isn't it? Now, we know what's happened just recently with the NatWest thing, where that went down. And also, there was a glitch, a week or so, because I went to my post office with my Co-op bank card. I thought, all right, can I have a tenner out, please? And the computer says no. Oh, no. Oh, no, come on. No, try it again. No. And I was thinking, well, that's strange, because I've got at least a tenner in my bank account. And I know this. And it was there again, another glitch with the electronic banking system. Now, with NatWest, when that went down, had they not caught it up, had that gone for another couple of days, that would have been it. I think the financial system would have been stuffed. Because what do you do? It's almost like all the money. Can you imagine the whole system? If it all crashed, that would be like, oh, the financial system, it's crashed. What do you mean it's crashed? What, like in the 30s? No, the electronics has gone down. It's all disappeared. It was all fiction anyway. What a fantastic opportunity that would be to sort of like go and get your bank statement. Right, let's add a 0 to that. Change it from red to... No, that wouldn't be honest, would it? But this is where I sort of like get into the... it says... on one page, and I highlighted it here, but it's far too small for you to read. So what it actually says here, the highlighted bit says, the Bank of England, and it's, of course, it's, you've got to imagine the condescending adult talking to the stupid child. The Bank of England has been issuing banknotes for over 300 years. Early banknotes were receipts for gold deposited in the bank. The holder of the banknote could bring it to the bank and exchange it for gold. It wasn't a banknote, it was a promissory note. Very different. Very different. But already they've changed the language. And then it says, in one sentence, it says, "This is no longer possible, but banknotes still retain the words, 'I promise to pay the bearer on demand.'" You know, just like the old promissory notes did, except that they've stolen everything of value from our promissory notes. This is the crazy thing. And of course, a promissory note in the old days, that was a promissory note. All it is a promise to pay. And of course, that was when it was actually backed by something. And it was actually backed, it wasn't gold backed. It was based, a pound was based on not even an imperial pound, it was based on a troy pound, and that's a weight they used to balance it up against the, silver. It was a troy pound of sterling silver. That's why our currency is still known as sterling. Although they held reserves in gold, the actual amount, £1, was £1 of sterling silver. Now, but going one bit later, as I said before, the banks create money out of thin air. Well, it's not the banks do, but they can't do it without us. Because they can't do it without your signature. Okay? And I'm not going to go into, because there's another level of complexity where it does start, and I'm keeping it really simple for my own benefit. But what actually happens is your application form for a credit card or a loan or whatever, that is a promissory note. And so it's you basically giving them a promissory note, but the difficulty is, and then they give you promissory notes or electronic, this is, you've got to follow this. They give you, basically, you get your money out the hole in the wall, and they give you promissory notes. However, they create theirs out of thin air, or just print them, but you actually have to go to work to get yours, or to get your little zeros and ones on electronic money, sent to you've actually got to work. I mean, it's crazy. I've never actually understood it, because I want to actually be in a... I thought, well, why can't I create promissory notes? Just like that one. Hang on, not that one there. And so we did a little bit of research, and realised that, we can create promissory notes. And what was nice is that I got hold of a bank manager who was quite intelligent. He'd actually done a degree in economics before he'd started banking. And then he actually started banking in 2008, a young guy, but very clever. And what he started doing is looking in. He thought he was looking forward to a wonderful career in banking. Of course, he starts when the shit starts hitting the fan. So he starts looking into it, and he started coming to a lot of the same conclusions as I did. And not only that, but he knew a little bit about the Bills of Exchange Act, because that's interesting. And so what we did, we interviewed him. Now, I'm going to play you a little bit of it. I've had to actually disguise his voice. I can't tell you which city he lives in, but he's got a large city branch that he runs, and he's actually talking about promissory notes. And we actually ask him some questions. The words will come up as well, just in case you can't hear it. But let's just see if I can get it to come up. There we go.
I'd like to ask you, if I were to approach the bank
Yes.
on promissory notes, what would you do?
By law, it has to be accepted because we can put it through the Bank of England. But you try and get the bus home now and pay with stamps.
Yeah.
That's what I would say.
So if we came into the bank with promissory note, you would accept it for value.
Well, we've got to, haven't we?
We've got to.
But we don't. We wouldn't.
And that goes back to 1882,
Yeah,
yes?
I know.
Bills of Exchange Act.
Yeah.
So, you were saying you have to accept promissory notes.
Well, right, by law, we do. Of course we do.
I think that's all we need. By law, of course we do. And if you want confirmation of that, Lord Denning actually said a promissory note is basically as good as cash. I can't remember the exact wording he used. Either to be accepted as cash or as good as cash. So, what attracted? So what we did, we get them on the website. And now I'm not promising free cash for anybody. However, if you go to our forum, look in success stories, we have had a lot of success with people paying off mobile phone bills, utilities, things like that. There's one guy called Martin. I don't know if anyone follows a website called Clicking Muse. Anyone heard about Martin and his adventures with, I'm trying to think which, HSBC, I think it was. What he did, he went in, he paid off his overdraft in cash and got there on Monday morning and, no, he sort of looked on, paid it in previous week. Monday, it's not showing up. Phones up the bank manager, says, look, I paid my overdraft off in cash and it hasn't shown up on my account. And she said, right, well, you better come down here straight away. So he goes in, and of course he's recording the whole thing. And he says, so she said, oh my goodness. And they're panicking because they've lost £3,500. So she said, well, can you give me a breakdown of the notes? He said, yeah, by all means, I can remember exactly what it was. There's one note. And then her face sort of fell. She said, yeah, the promissory note. yes. We said, well, we can't take that. I think, he said, well, actually, legally, you have to. Bills of Exchange Act. It states. And it also states, because, of course, what this guy had done with his mate, they're really sharp on the law. And they looked up at previous case histories, the whole lot. And what they did, they actually looked up and... on their memorandum of articles of association, I think, or you can actually look up there on their website, how the PLC is set up, and it says that they have to accept promissory notes. So and so they're very clever because they said to the lady, the bank manager, they said, well, whatever happens, can we just sort it out according to the law? Which was very clever, because, of course, the law says that they've got to accept them. Now, the whole thing was, this goes back to the day when they were worth something and your honour, basically it was the honourable thing to do. I wouldn't pay anyone here if you came and did a wonderful job and built a house for me, I wouldn't pay you with a promissory note because you're not going to be able to cash it anywhere. Because the Bank of England won't accept them from you. They will accept them from... an individual. Now, this guy, he never got his original promissory note back because he got a photocopy of it back. Why? Because the original one, they'd have sold. And this is what they do. And he even started trying to get the police on them for securities fraud. Seriously, I mean, this is how crazy it is. But, it's... But anyway, people are having success. You can download these... And even the website puts your name in as well, which is nice. It doesn't put the amount in. You have to put the amount in. I tell you, I've got the best job in the world. It's great. I love it. Remember, their plan is to take you for every penny you've got. Your plan is to stop them. And what I'm going to do, I think I've got 15 minutes or so. I'm going to sort of rattle through and just sort of explain a little bit about the website. You understand a better chance of... you have a better chance of winning if you understand the rules, okay? And the rules of Monopoly are quite simple, I think. That's the other thing about Monopoly that I forgot to tell you. We all learn, the story. We're all fed. And this is how our history is made up. But even the game of Monopoly... They've even lied to us about how that has been set up, how the game started. Go to a site or Google anti-monopoly. And it was set up for economic students. It wasn't set up for kids to see how much money they could get. It was set up for economic students to realise that a capitalist society can't work. And it was a little bit more complicated, and then people started playing it all over the place, and then kids got hold of it, and then, the rest is history. But it's crazy. But we have to remember it is only a game, okay? So let's not take it too seriously. And like any game, it all has to go back in the box. But see, has anyone actually thought, because of course I don't do much research, but I do think a lot. Do you realise that who here hasn't played Monopoly? That's probably the best. Is there anyone that's... Shame on you, Patrick. It's great. You get big bundles of money. Unless, of course, you buy one of the new Monopoly sets where kids now can get a Monopoly set, electronic Monopoly, where they actually get credit cards. So you get kids addicted to plastic at a really young age. Wicked. Yeah. Beep. Yeah, there we go. Beep. Yeah. Great. But it all goes back, it all has to go back in the box. And, the current financial system is actually having to go back in the box at the moment because it's out of control. It's all, so what we're going to have to do, we're going to sort it all out and just put it all back in and start again. But of course, when you win Monopoly, you end up with all the money. But the game has to stop then because you've got all the hotels, you've got all the streets, you've got the land, you've got the utilities, and this is the situation we're in at the moment with the corporations. You own everything, but like a good host, and we're talking like host as in, a good parasite doesn't kill its host, does it? Because if it drains all the blood out of its host, it's not going to have anything to eat. And so the person that wins at Monopoly actually bankrupts themselves. Can you see? That's what I think, anyway, because you've got all the money, but you can no longer rent your hotels out or anything else. And, of course, they're all bankrupts. You can't even trade with them. So, I mean, it's crazy. It is crazy. And, of course, the wonderful thing is, in the game of Monopoly, the bank never goes broke. And this is a quote. That's a quote from the rules of Monopoly, and you can look this up for yourself. If the bank runs out of money, the banker may issue as much as is needed by writing on any ordinary paper. Thinking, where have we heard that before? It's like, and there's a lovely little cartoon. What do you mean you need a bailout? It's crazy. And, of course, it wouldn't be so funny apart from the fact that we've just now, in Europe, the European Bank and the Federal Reserve have now started QE3, or as some people on the internet are calling it, QEI, which is QE to infinity. The first two rounds of quantitative easing we had were limited. They said, right, we're going to inject a certain amount into the economy. Now, no, unlimited. So now they can inject money every month into the money supply. And you wonder why you look at the Bank of England balance sheet since 1830. So I'm not going to go into the detail of it because it's a graph and I don't get complicated. But can you see what's happening with the graph? That's 1956. I'm not sure whether that was the beginning of the Suez Crisis or, there's a little jump there. And then by 1970s, we had a lot of inflation, didn't we? You remember the inflation we had? Well, that's because they were increasing the money supply. And then by 84, it's sort of going up. And then, of course, we get this sort of up and down. I think, was it Maggie Thatcher actually tried to balance the books a little bit and made a little bit of headway, actually. But then, she got rid of half the infrastructure of the country, but won't mention that. But then, of course, and this is that's 2012. This is 2008. So this is how the money supply has grown since 2008. So it all goes back. There's not enough marbles, so I had to add some more. I mean, how crazy is this? How crazy? And it's like debt ceiling. We have a problem with the debt ceiling. And, of course, as the money supply... this is the purchasing power of the British pound since 1694. And it starts off at 100%. And it's actually, I think it's probably nearer 1% there, but I'm not going to go into any detail. Obviously, the more you inflate a monetary supply, the less it's actually worth. I mean, it's keeping it really, really simple. Yeah. And, of course... There we go. That's only up until 2008, because remember that's going to go way up. But that's basically the broad money supply and the debt. Sorry, other way round. The debt and the money supply. Notice how the debt always outstrips the money supply. It has to, because it's always ahead of it. It's always like you can never catch it up, because that's how they create money. It's crazy. And then you look at the government urge to reveal true national debt of 4.8 trillion. Well, 1 trillion grains of sand weigh 72 tons. Trillions a lot. Trillions, trillions. If you had a trillion £10 notes and they'd actually reached the moon and back, it's crazy. Or I think it could even be further than that, but it's mad. It's mad. And then the economist Kenneth Boulding actually said, anyone who believes exponential growth can go on forever in a finite world is either a madman or an economist. I mean, is it me that's just got it completely wrong? Because I do get occasionally people arguing with me that have done a degree in economics and say, yes, but. And when they say, yes, but, there's going to be a problem. Well, quite. I mean, it is. Some people just think that, well, how come some bloke that the only thing I'm qualified in is holistic therapy and I know a couple of and engineering. Now, what do you know about money? But it's really not that complicated. It's like Patrick. Actually going to people with whose whole lives are in the in the RAF. You'd think they know a little bit about exhaust that comes out of aeroplanes. No, they can't see it because they're fast asleep. So they do wake up. We all wake up in the end. So now this is interesting because I thought about what remedy do we have? How do we get around this? Because it's all a bit of a cock up at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, it should be Iceland.
Well, coming on to Iceland, but this was long before Iceland. Okay, this was 1870. I come from Guernsey, so I'd heard about this, and it was only recently I actually got this on eBay and found out a little bit about it. And this was the second book, and notice that's a lot of publishing there, isn't there? But this has been hidden from us. And this was the original one that came out in the 50s, and this one came out in the early 60s. And this is called the Guernsey. It's now known as the Guernsey Experiment. And what it was, basically, Guernsey was in a situation where it was pretty well bankrupt after the Napoleonic War. Guess what? They'd had to build huge fortifications to keep Napoleon out. And, of course, guess where they had to borrow the money from? Go on, just anyone. Guess where they had to borrow the money from. The banks, that's right. So they owed huge money to the banks. And, of course, in Guernsey, you don't get full-time politicians. You get members of the states. And what they do, they get voted, like councillors. But anyway, they were all businessmen. And they were sort of scratching their heads saying, we're stuffed. The island needs serious infrastructure. We need a new harbour. We need a market, and we need our sea defences, but sea defences not to keep Napoleon out, to keep the sea out, because parts of the island were actually getting flooded, and people's livelihoods and farming land was being flooded on a high tide, which was ruining the crops. So they had serious problems, and they owed all this money due to a war. They owed all this money to the banks. Interesting how history repeats itself, isn't it? So what they did, they thought, well, hang on. We're a government, aren't we? And they go, well, yeah, we're states of Guernsey, that's a government, and we're independent. And at the time, they had independent currency from the UK. So I said, well, we can create our own debt-free money supply. And somebody said, well, if we do that, then we're going to steal that. As we inflate the money, we're going to actually steal everyone that's got savings. That's going to be stolen from them. They said, no, what we'll do, sheer genius. What they did, they created promissory notes backed by the states of Guernsey. The states is like the parishes, if you like, of Guernsey. And what we'll do, we'll give them a 3-year lifespan. So what we'll effectively do is we'll start a project that's going to take 3 years. We'll pay everyone in these promissory notes. But then, at the end, once the project's made, we take the money back. No debt. So what's brilliant is all this infrastructure got built because they were able to take the stone out the quarries, and they were able to put the stone and build all these wonderful things without any borrowing. So, doesn't it sort of question, why didn't they do that when they built the fortifications, and why don't all governments do that? Because that would be very simple, wouldn't it? Because you wouldn't end up, you would be able to get the work done, because what it is, money has been a form of accounting. It came out as a form of accounting. Okay, it was worth something. It wasn't a commodity in its own right, but it's become a commodity. But by becoming a commodity, it means it's difficult for us. There's people that are employed that want jobs. There are things that need building and doing that can't be done because there's not enough money to go around. How crazy is that? And this is because of the banking system that we have. And of course, as somebody mentioned, Iceland's economy is now expected to grow by 2.4% in 2012. Well, that's interesting. And I'm not going to go over exactly what happened in Iceland, apart from the fact that they had 4 nationalised banks, which the bankers decided, we'll make more money here if we privatise them and deregulate them. And then they made all this money. It was like a big pyramid scheme where lots of people, including my council, put council taxpayers' money into this, and of course, like any Ponzi scheme, it crashed because they were just more highly geared than the rest of the economy. However, what happened is the people, it's quite a small country, the people said, we didn't cause this and we're not going to pay for it. What they also did, anyone with a mortgage with negative equity, they remortgaged their homes back down to the market value. So nobody was left. They didn't pay their mortgages off for them, but they made them so that they weren't losing their houses. Nobody lost their house in Iceland. Hardly anyone lost their house in Iceland. And then, of course, what they did, they actually put in a new constitution, and I'm sure everyone aware of what's going on in Iceland. Yeah, so... Yeah. So, real people power. So there's hope for us. I mean, wonderful. And it was basically people, and even the police sort of like got on board because there was some quite nasty rioting, but there are a load of guys that came in, and what they did, they put on yellow sort of like these like things that people put on when they like gives them automatic authority, doesn't it? But they actually got a lot of peace protesters got in the middle between the police and the angry protesters and said, no, let's stop fighting. And it almost like got the police on board and everyone moved forwards together. So there are wonderful sort of ways out. Now, I was going to go over the website, but I think really if you want to have a look at the website, you can go home in... perhaps tomorrow, get online and go and have a look at it. I was going to give you an overview, but of course I always talk longer, and we are going to be a little bit pushed to get everyone in. So I'm going to try and I'm just going to jump through a few slides. So if you really want to read them really quickly, I'll just read one of them, my favourite one. The secret to winning the game for everyone is to assume a deficiency of love in your opponent and then apply some. So if you're going to have a go at debt collectors, realise that they are human beings. They could be your brother-in-law or sister-in-law or something like that. You don't know who they are. You don't know what made them. So don't be rude to them. Treat them. And once you've lost that fear, then you can have a laugh with them. And I've got a mate of mine. Yeah, I've got a mate of mine. What he does, he actually says, well, do you really, how much do you pay for that debt? And he starts questioning. General rules. I'll just tie up with the general rules when dealing with banks and debt collectors. Always be truthful. Always respond politely, always act honourably, always act lawfully, and don't be greedy. What you could do, you could go out knowing what I know and what Mary Elizabeth Craft and what's on the website. You could go out and get as many credit cards as you want, and you could then go out and get a really flash car. And what you're then doing is being greedy and taking resources from other people. But if you've got kids to feed, go out and get a credit card, and certainly. Well, why shouldn't you? Why shouldn't you? No, because I haven't got time. Yeah, I haven't got time to go. Yeah, no, but get on the website. It's all on the website. So where the resources are there. So I'd prefer to just sort of... What I want to do is tie up, do a few... Because I've worked out that if we all take too long, then poor old Brian's going to be still talking at midnight tonight. So I'm going to try and keep mine a little bit short. Oh, one thing I say, respect authority, okay? It's very, very important that everyone respects authority. Now, everyone's like, I've got everyone's attention now, haven't I? Okay? There is only one authority in your life, okay? And it's a little voice inside your heart. And sometimes you have to go very, very quiet before you actually hear it. But once you actually start hearing it, you realise it really does shout. So, you know, that is the one thing. Don't depend on external sources. Some people say, oh, I found this video, and oh, this person's a Freemason, that person... You know, according to the internet, basically all the leading, you know, truthers are Masons, or, you know, it's crazy. You've got to actually ask yourself, does this fit in? Does this make more sense or less sense? So listen to your heart, please. And I've said before, money was never intended to be a commodity, but a means of accounting. And we produce more than enough food to eradicate world hunger. Too bad there isn't enough money to pay for it all. And fractional, I think we can honestly say that fractional reserve banking has simply failed us. Would everyone agree with that? Well, it hasn't failed the bankers. It's done exactly what it's done exactly what it was meant to do, which is basically rob us, and steal our wealth. And as just to repeat, economist Kenneth Boulding again, anyone who believes exponential growth can go on forever in a finite world is either a madman or economist. I mean, so some people are waking up to what's going on. And you say, it's not a crisis, it's a scam. Well, I would actually go one little bit further, actually. And I do make a sort of laugh and a joke about it, but I am quite angry about what's going on. But me being angry, if I just started going, yes, and these bastards are doing this and they're doing that, I just think it's the wrong energy. We can do this by raising above that sort of energy. So that's why I try and do it with a little bit of humour and a little bit of love and a little bit of compassion. And President Thomas Jefferson did actually warn us. He said the American people, anyone in the Western world, if the American people ever allow private banks to control the issue of money, first by inflation and then by deflation, the banks and the corporations that grow up around them will deprive the people of all property until their children will wake up homeless on the continent their forefathers conquered. So, I mean, it did, we had warnings through history, didn't we? And it is a mathematical certainty that the economy will collapse. So get ready for it. I've got lots of, people say, well, what have you put your money into? And if anyone wants any tips, lentils. Yeah, brilliant. You can sprout them, you can make, I do lots of things with lentils. You've tasted my lentils, I believe. You don't look that impressed. Oh dear. But at the end of the day, it's all got to go back in the box. And this is the thing, you can't have this monopoly, can't go on and on forever. This is the crazy thing. And, chickens. Why have I got chickens up here? Well, it's quite interesting. So we'll just talk a little bit about chickens now. When you try and convert barn chickens like these to free range, all you have to do is open the door. But they don't like going out because they've got used to walking around in their own crap, haven't they? And they quite like fluorescent lights. And it's scary out there. But what it does, it takes one or two people, it takes one chicken first, really, to get free range. It needs to, take that step out of the open door and step away from it. And then, I'm not going to do chicken impressions for you today because I've only had half a Peroni. But it's like once one has gone out, then another follows, and this is what's happening. I feel that this year is a very special year, and people are waking up. And I'm seeing this all the time. And what we've got ahead of us is actually wonderful. But, okay, we've got a few little obstacles to get over, but I am absolutely confident that we overcome these naughty people on the planet that have been stealing our wealth poisoning us and causing wars and starvation. We win. We've got the truth on our side. It is very, very powerful. We're about to go through some monumental changes, and there will be challenges. The powers that be, that's TPTB, the powers that be may be powerful with their media, money, and armed thugs. We are We are infinitely more powerful, and it's now is the time for us to step into that power. And we're getting really close. I mean, the Mayans and, there's been an awful lot of indigenous people on the planet that understood that this is a very important time in history. And we're seeing it playing out perfectly. This is why we're all here. Saturday afternoon, we could be doing anything, and we've all decided to come together to actually share our, what we feel. And what the caterpillar calls the end of the world, the master calls a butterfly. As our butterfly. And that's there we go. New global currency is love. Yeah, so we've just got to install it now. So, and I'm just going to finish off very quickly with, sorry, I do this, but I'm going to finish off very quickly with a little poem. You've been telling the people that this is the 11th hour. Now you must go back and tell the people this is the hour. To my fellow swimmers, there is a river flowing very fast. It is so swift there are those who will be afraid. They will try to hold on to the shore. They will feel that they are being torn apart and will suffer greatly. Know that the river has a destination. The elders say we must let go of the shore, push off into the middle of the river. And I say, see who is there with you and celebrate. At this time in history, we are to take nothing personally, least of all ourselves. For the moment we do, our spiritual growth comes to a halt. The time of the lone wolf is over. Gather yourselves together as we are today. Banish the word struggle from your attitude and vocabulary. All that we do now must be done in a sacred manner and in celebration, for we are the ones we've been waiting for. Thank you very much.